We broke our backs to get here, and you didn't say for what. You said this was important, but it seems that it is not. You were rather vague on what this small liaison would entail, but could you really not just put this in an email?
That was Thomas Benjamin. I just simply love that song. It beautifully describes the collective pain that we all go through because of unproductive meetings. If you can relate to this, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Sana. Welcome to the first episode of Less Shitty Meetings. I've had enough of shitty meetings ruining my day. So, with this podcast, my mission is really simple: getting rid of meetings, at least the shitty ones. In each episode, I'm going to share data and insights that we've gathered from days of research and, of course, years of living with a calendar full of meetings. I'm also going to share case studies on what works and what doesn't work, what's worked in the past, what could work in the future for individuals and organizations around the world. You might also hear a few horror stories here and there, so if you have any, feel free to send it in. But at the end of it all, I hope that you and I leave with a calendar that has more space for things that matter. It's about time we reclaimed our time and sanity from this meeting madness.
If you had to identify, in one word, the reason why the human race has not achieved and never will achieve its full potential, that word would be meetings.
That's what Dave Barry said. Was he right? In our first episode, I just wanted to figure out what's really going on. So we asked the community for some of their experiences. Have a listen. I'll be back.
Yeah, I remember this one meeting where we spent 1 hour discussing the font on the first slide of the presentation. Very productive, right?
You could have just attached that 87 slides long presentation in an email and send it to us. No, he called us all on a Monday morning, 9 a.m. to the office just to explain his idea. Oh, God.
This meeting was a recurring, operating review, so to say. It was just, and my boss at the time was somebody who really wanted everyone to be prepared. There were several hours of preparation for that meeting. And every time he would turn up late to the meeting, completely unprepared himself.
With those kind of experiences, I'm not surprised the sentiment around meetings isn't great. But I really wanted to see what the data said. I wanted to know whether it has always been like this. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? So we really spent more hours than I'm comfortable sharing going through extensive reports, surveys, case studies, and whatnot on meetings. And the data is mind-boggling. Meetings have been happening since forever, like the Greeks and their agoras, and to the more formalized business meetings that we're more familiar with since the Industrial Revolution. And it seems like ever since, we've just been complaining about them. In fact, Michael Doyle was writing about the insane amount of meetings happening in the US even in the 1970s. In 1996, he said there were over 25 million meetings happening in the US every day and over 85 million worldwide. By 2022, the 25 million meetings a day had gone up to somewhere as high as 80 million meetings every day in the US. I also came across a study that said Xerox, the copy machine maker, was spending more than $100 million a year on meetings in their manufacturing and development unit alone. There's also a report from 2019 that says that the US alone was losing around $37 billion in meetings. There is so much data to share, but it's almost impossible for me to do it in this episode, or in fact, in this entire series. But Lucid Meetings and a few others have done such amazing work gathering data and making sense of it. I'm going to share links to their work as well. Unfortunately, most of the data that we could get our hands on was specific to the US. So we might be doing a little survey of our own just to figure out what people in other geographies are saying about meetings. But regardless of what the numbers say, I think we all know the deeper sentiment. We've all been wondering why we're drowning in a sea of meeting. Why do we need meetings at all? And how many meetings is too many meetings? During one of their studies, Bain and co found something super interesting. It's also ridiculous. At one of the companies that they were studying, employees throughout the organization were spending a ridiculous 300,000 hours a year supporting a single weekly executive committee meeting. I'm going to give you a second to let that sink in.
A few moments later.
300,000 hours a year supporting one weekly executive committee meeting. That's just one weekly meeting. Although the executive committee was spending around 7,000 hours on the weekly meeting over the course of the year, that was, of course, just the beginning, because to get briefed for the meeting each week, the 11 members of the committee met with their unit heads, which meant another 20,000 hours of meeting. Then those unit heads met with their subordinates, who met with their subordinates. And very quickly, the time suck multiplied and cascaded through the organization. That's 300,000 people hours to support one weekly executive committee meeting. And that doesn't even include the time spent prepping for these meetings. Now, there's no way to say that all those 300,000 hours were a total waste, because they might not have been. In fact, for the record, I don't hate meetings.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
I actually think meetings have the potential to be vibrant hubs of collaboration where ideas flourish and decisions are made that drive us forward. When done right, meetings can actually be exhilarating, as much as you might judge me for it. There really is space for teams to align on big goals, share groundbreaking updates, and make decisions that propel us to the direction that we want to go to. But instead, I think they've often become a default setting for every little thing, leading to unproductive, soul-sucking gatherings. And I say this because I've seen my share of horrible meetings, the long, uninspiring, unnecessary ones. The ones that start late because another meeting ran over, the monologues, all of that. And I'm really sorry to everyone who sat through similar meetings that I organized. But I've also had my share of good meetings, the ones that we left feeling good about us. Even great ones, the ones that moved the needle. So I don't need convincing that not all meetings suck. But too many and too shitty, that's what needs fixing. So I just think we suck at running meetings, but continue to host more and more of these shitty meetings, which gives meetings a bad rep.
Once we had a meeting to plan the next meeting. I wish I were kidding, but I'm not.
What the data also suggests is that the number of hours, of course, in a day is static. And the struggle to find a bathroom break between meetings or time for actual work is not new. But the number of meetings is going up. So it just seems like meetings are shrinking in duration, which just means more meetings. This also aligns with the advice a lot of people have been giving: shorten the meetings. But unfortunately, that shortening has just made way for more meetings instead of more time to work, which means more context switching. And that can be extremely exhausting. Each meeting needs prep, follow-up, context switching, and more. Add to this the constant barrage of emails and WhatsApps and Slack messages. So it's no surprise that everybody's overwhelmed. So if we're all doing it wrong, how do we fix it? That's what we're going to cover in future episodes. For today, this meeting is adjourned.